What's up, everybody? You have found the Lines Injury Podcast for week number 13 in the NFL. My name is Steven Andress, managing editor at thelines.com, joined each and every week on this show by Will Carroll, more than 20 years experience covering sports injuries at a variety of levels, including the professional sports ranks, including the NFL, has an intimate knowledge of what's going on here. Will, you still got your book in your room there? Let's hold that bad boy up.
Of course I do.
For football, you love it? Little
shameless plug there. Great Christmas gift.
Yeah, haven't seen you in a couple weeks, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. The injuries have kept coming. We've talked about this all season long, that the injuries are coming in a different pattern this year than what we expected. Yeah, and this isn't COVID. This is the changes they made to the preseason. So we're seeing a different shape. We're seeing more injuries towards the middle of the season. It looks like they're going to carry right through as we saw last year. There's more fatigue-based injuries than we've seen. There's more lower leg injuries than we've seen, though that one's at least explainable by the SoFi turf. It's taken over Lucas Oil as the danger zone for ankles and high ankles. So it's been a really interesting year in terms of injuries. And of course, if you understand the injuries, it sure helps you understand your bets.
Yeah, for sure. We'll discuss that SoFi turf in a minute here. One of the biggest names in the NFL, Aaron Donald, also getting hurt recently. But I want to start with the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears game this week, because we have what appears to be both starting quarterbacks playing in Aaron Rodgers and Justin Fields, but neither at 100%. Can't really be completely confident that both of these quarterbacks are going to be able to finish this game. This is the lead in your latest column this week on thelines.com. You can check out that article just posted here a little while ago. And I guess let's start with Aaron Rodgers, obviously one of the biggest names in the NFL. He admitted to having the thumb injury, a broken thumb to some extent that he was playing through. But the latest is the rib injury that knocked him out of the Sunday night game against the Philadelphia Eagles. So what can you tell us about the context of these injuries and how much it might affect his play?
Yeah, there's a couple things you have to understand here. And Aaron Rodgers, of course, goes on the Pat McAfee show, talks about it, but realize that he only talks about it to the point it does him some positives. When he has a minor injury, he doesn't talk about it until he has a bad game. And then he goes, but I've been playing through this whole thumb thing. It's just Aaron Rodgers at this stage.
You think he might want to mention it when he has a good game, be like, oh, wow, Aaron Rodgers played so good with an injury, but apparently he just wants to, save his butt sometimes.
With both of these, when you hear broken thumb, broken rib, it's probably not exactly what he has. We all have this vision of, any fracture being just, a bone snapping in half. That's not what he has here. He has what's called an avulsion fracture, where basically the ligament or tendon has pulled a piece of the bone away. It's not a big fracture. It really functions more like a sprain or strain in that you don't have the full stability of that, but he has full grip strength. So this one's a little bit confusing. He hasn't had any problems holding the ball. He's had a little bit of problem getting it out. His thumb's a little bit late. I'm told people watching film have told me that he's just not getting his hand off the ball normally. There's sort of a detachment the way you do it. It comes off your middle finger last and off your thumb first. So he's having some issues with that, but not big issues. As for the pain, you certainly can't numb a quarterback's hand. People think, just take an injection. Can't do that. With the rib, again, this is a fracture, but it's not a complete fracture, and it's very high. It's basically up in his chest. I don't know the exact level, but it's his second or third rib, I'm told. So, if he gets hit in the side, it's certainly not going to feel good, but it's not going to be a direct shot on that. Now, this is one you can shoot and deaden that area, give a little bit of relief. That does tend to wear off in games, so you'll have it again at the half. The thing that really intrigued me was not that he talked about the injuries on the McAfee show. It was that he talked about shutting it down. And that I just haven't heard. When you hear it from quarterbacks, I always remember, I forget who it was. It was probably Oprah or something saying, if you talk about divorce, you're probably going to get divorced. Well, if you talk about shutting it down, you're at least thinking about it. You're putting that intention out into the world. I'm just not sure how motivated Aaron Rodgers is right now. He's got a lot of other interests.
They're not in the playoff hunt anymore. What exactly is he playing for this season?
Yeah, I can see much in the same way the Rams are basically shutting people down. There's no reason for Aaron Rodgers to go out there and kill himself. I can respect that. You don't want somebody to just, I'm out, the way some have. But for Aaron, I can see where a cumulative injury and lack of real reward at the end would make sense, especially when you've got a quarterback like Jordan Love, who I still don't think anybody really knows who he is. And you've got to start thinking about replacing Aaron Rodgers, and they're going to have a good pick. And we're in a really deep draft class for quarterbacks. So there's a lot of reason to do it, honestly.
Yeah, I'm not sure Aaron Rodgers is thinking about retiring. I mean, he just signed a monster contract, 3 years, $150 million extension. So if anything, if I'm the organization, and let's be honest, the Packers GM hasn't exactly been the sharpest tool in the shed here over the past couple of years with his roster moves and them still needing a wide receiver. But would not the ultimate irony be Jordan Love plays the rest of the year, becomes a target in trade discussions for teams that need a quarterback, and then the Packers use the draft pick they get for Jordan Love finally on a wide receiver? That would just be the perfect ironic twist to all of this. But
you can see it play out that way. I think for me, I don't think Rodgers is going to walk away, but in a year where Tom Brady has fallen off a cliff, where Aaron Rodgers has fallen off a cliff, where Russell Wilson has completely fallen off a cliff, I think you do have to think about aging quarterbacks as not being invincible. One of my fantasy teams, I got Brady and Rodgers as the quarterbacks, and I was like, boom, I'm set, championship. No.
Nope.
It hasn't worked out there, but it's one of those situations where I think aging quarterbacks, we've kind of forgotten that they age just because of Tom Brady and Rodgers to a little bit. So
we just don't know where the cliff drops off, right? For each of these guys.
Exactly.
It's always different.
I think you could add Matt Ryan to that as well, though the offensive line has more to do with it.
For sure. I don't think Rodgers is washed by any means, although the stats have been certainly concerning. But they're going to need some help. I think the offensive line is washed. They're injured. They're going to need to get going on the offensive line. So it's going to be a big offseason for Green Bay here. In the context of this game, though, the line has moved down off the key number or to the key number of 3 in a couple of spots. It was 3.5. It's now down to a juice 3 in some spots for the Packers. There are still some 3.5s on the board, anywhere from -107 to -115 juice. You can find that in our odds article every week on thelines.com under the NFL tab. So let's talk about Justin Fields now on the other side here, because typically, if a guy's playing through a non-throwing shoulder injury, I'd be like, oh, great, he's good. He can still throw the ball, no problem. But we know Justin Fields is not running the offense like a typical quarterback. This has turned into a Cam Newton, Lamar Jackson type offense where the quarterback is running 13 to 18 times a game.
Yeah.
And that's where I get concerned with Justin Fields having a shoulder injury. This went from all kinds of speculation of whether it could be season ending to only a couple of weeks. Apparently it's not season ending. He's going to try and play through it after a week recovery here. So what do you know about it, and how concerned are you given the context of how he plays the quarterback position?
Exactly. I'm worried about both that running game that he has to have to be effective, but also the fact that he takes so many hits. He's not as big as a Cam Newton. He's not as big as Lamar Jackson. The fact that he's taking all these hits is obviously taking a toll. He's been beat up. The AC sprain is something that could happen. We've seen that happen to Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers in the same sort of mechanism where you get thrown down and you stick your arm out, or you land on it and it runs up. He broke his collarbone. Same sort of thing here. The AC joint is where your collarbone meets your shoulder. There's a really thick ligament there, and when it opens up, basically we call it a separated shoulder because it sort of subluxes, starts to dislocate, but doesn't. But the sprain is
really painful too, right?
Exactly. That's the thing. So even though it's his non-throwing shoulder, try throwing a football with one hand in your pocket. It just doesn't work. That has to be there. If it's in a harness, and it's going to be in a harness, it's going to affect his motion a little bit. He's been a whole lot better with his target accuracy this year than last year. tons of progress, actually. But it's still one that might affect him. I worry about somebody who had those issues recently. The second is he's still going to take hits. I don't care if he's a pocket quarterback suddenly. I don't care if he's, Peyton Manning.
Of all the quarterbacks in the league, especially him, he's going to take hits.
He's going to take a hit. And even in a harness, that harness is not going to help the shoulder. There's really nothing. Shoulder pads are for contact, and usually contact in one plane. It doesn't help when you fall on it. So he's going to have that. It's going to hurt. The question is, is he going to be able to play through it? Is he going to be able to play through it effectively? I'm just not sure he's going to be able to make it through the game. If he does, you clap for him. You say, thank you. That's a tough football player. And you hope it didn't get any worse. On the other hand, we very well might have, by the end of the game, Jordan Love and Tim Boyle playing quarterback. And when I take a look, last I saw it, it was 39.5 was the over. That's an awfully low number, but, Boyle versus Love, I think I would take that if I knew it was the full game. I just don't have any sense of either of these quarterbacks both being able to make it through the game. There's too many unknowns, and I hate unknowns.
Yeah, so we're at 44.5 now on the over-under, and I think a lot of that is based on just both of these defenses being pretty bad. The Packers being bad against the run, Bears being bad at everything defensively, but I agree with you with the quarterback uncertainty in this game. It's hard to pick a side in this one. At that
level, I really like the under.
Yeah, fair enough.
I like the under even if they're healthy.
Yeah, there you go. So for me, it's a Bears team total over here, just in the hopes that Justin Fields can make it through the game with just how poor. I mean, the Packers have been awful stopping the run all year. They just gave up 8 yards a carry to the Eagles. And now they have an extra blocker in the run game that they have to account for because the quarterback's going to be the one running the ball a lot of the time for the Chicago Bears. So don't feel great about it because of the risk here and the volatility and the variance, but that would be my angle on this one.
Exactly.
All right, so let's move forward here. You talked about SoFi Stadium a little bit. There's a couple of big names there for the Los Angeles Rams, and boy, did they sell their soul apparently to win the Super Bowl, because I don't think, as you wrote in your column, I didn't think anybody anticipated it falling off a cliff this quickly, but Aaron Donald's got a high ankle sprain.
Yep.
I'd be shocked if he plays again this year. What's the point, first of all?
None.
Matthew Stafford, the latest reports are that he's not going to play this week. John Wolford is going to start this week. So how
Wolford's got a bad knee.
Yeah, he's not 100%, but Stafford on the injury report with a concussion and a neck injury. This is not Stafford's first concussion. It's now been a couple of weeks. He still isn't out of the protocol. So how concerned are you, not only short-term here, but long-term for Stafford, given this is a growing history of concussions?
Yeah, I'm not that concerned. I mean, if I'm, Kelly Stafford, I would be more concerned. If I'm Matthew, I'm taking a look in the mirror and saying, how bad do I want this? I've got my ring now. In the short term, concussions, 99% clear up. The fact that he's in the protocol isn't actually that telling. They're not progressing him through the steps. They knew he wasn't going to play this week. He has that whiplash. That's how he got the concussion, but he also got whiplash, which is not uncommon. That's what they said was going on with Tua Tagovailoa when he had his. You see those quarterbacks when they get, especially when they get knocked straight back, they'll land on their butt and then they'll whip through and their head will hit the turf. And if they roll, honestly, you want the head to hit the turf to stop the whiplash. You don't want the head to hit the turf for the concussion. But with that, with Donald, with Cooper Kupp, who had the tightrope surgery on his high ankle sprain, Donald's not going to have it. That team's just shredded. So right now, about the only positives you can do are seeing, playing spoiler and seeing what Kyron Williams can do.
Yeah, there's really not much left here and no confidence whatsoever. Yeah, we do our power rankings every week at thelines.com. 7 of us on the staff do it. We do it in the context of how we would rank them for only that week. We're not looking at Super Bowl futures. We're not looking at upward trajectory or downward trajectory, just the context of that week and the team that they're putting on the field for that particular week. And I had the Rams all the way at 30 this week because this is just a mash unit. They don't have any talent left. and teasing the Seahawks down from 7 on the road in LA down to 1 in a kind of a almost a Wong teaser. It's not at 7.5, but close enough. I feel really good about Seahawks -1 in a teaser leg here with a low total of 40.5. The lower the total, the more valuable the points are that you're buying. So that's kind of my angle in this one with nobody left for the Rams, it seems, Will.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm more curious to see this is sort of a milestone game for the Seahawks. That's a team that was so hot early in the season. Then they got some tape on Geno Smith. Teams have made adjustments. The Rams defense is still good, especially the defensive backfield. So we'll see how they can deal with that.
For sure, yeah. Show me you're for real, Seahawks. You had a rough game last week, scored a lot of points. We gave up a lot of points in that OT loss to the Raiders. Have a nice bounce back week here against the Rams team that you should be able to handle no problem at this point. So, okay, let's move to the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Detroit Lions. I think a kind of a sneaky fun game this week between these two teams that are trying to get better and improve and maybe be in the playoff picture next season. Travis Etienne leaves the game last week with a foot injury. Not the first time he's had a foot issue this year. He missed all last season with a foot issue. Doug Peterson said that he was cleared to come back, but they were cautious with him, so they didn't put him back in the game a week ago. Looks like he's going to play this week, but what do you know about the injury itself and whether it's related to what he had last year that made him miss the whole year?
It's in the same area. It's not a bad injury, but they were exceptionally concerned. Obviously, you don't have an MRI there at the stadium. They took an X-ray. They took some ultrasound in the locker room, but still decided, you know what? Nah, we're good. We're not there yet. This is a next year team. I think we're learning just how important good coaching is, especially to a young quarterback. Thank you, Urban Meyer, for all those good bets we had last year against the Jags. But Etienne is obviously going to be a guy that they have to have healthy long term. So they took the discretion is a better part of valor. They erred on the side of caution. Every other cliche you can say about it. It is not a significant injury, but it is in the same exact area where he had the foot injury last season. So they took no risks. I think that's going to color anything that happens going in. He hasn't had any issues with it since. It was a little sore, not swollen, per Etienne himself. So pretty darn good source. So I just worry he's going to go out there. He's going to get stepped on. He's going to take a hard cut and be a little bit sore. And they're going to say, you know what? Same thing. Hit the bench. Even though they don't have a lot of depth, even though they're a fun team to watch, and I think they have a really good chance of winning against the Lions, I think they're just going to be cautious with Etienne, not just this week, but the rest of the season.
For sure. I think from a prop standpoint, this isn't a situation that I want to back Etienne on because of the chance of re-injury. Is that fair? Would you agree with that, Will?
That's very
At least
fair.
overs for sure.
Yeah, exactly. It's very fair to just completely go away. On the other hand, they've got almost no depth. Remember, they traded away I'm blanking
James
on the guy
Robinson, yeah.
Robinson, yeah. I like them Brian Robinson. I knew that wasn't right. Big hat. But that has to be his new nickname, by the way. It's got to be Brian Big Hat Robinson.
Yeah, great. I don't know what that is, but he's going to try and make it a thing, apparently.
Yeah, so there's no I don't even remember who the backups were, but they're nobodies. They're basically street guys. So I think Trevor Lawrence is the play. They don't have anybody else to spread those carries out to. So I think Trevor Lawrence starts throwing short. He starts looking at Christian Kirk out there, looking at his tight ends. So on volume alone, he's probably going to have a pretty good day, especially since that game, scripts out to be a shootout. I think especially if the next guy we talk about is on the field, that thing's going to be in the 40s.
For sure. I think the betting angle here with the Travis Etienne situation is if he were to leave the game again and you're in a legal betting state that has live betting, then you could hop on the backup JaMychal Hasty to maybe score a touchdown or go over his yardage total if you're watching it closely, because earlier this week when it wasn't sure whether he's going to play, JaMychal Hasty's touchdown props were close to even money, around plus 110,
right,
plus 155. Now that Etienne's playing, FanDuel has adjusted. Hasty's now plus 490 to score a touchdown in this game, which I think is a pretty juicy price regardless going into this one. Mm-hmm. But if Etienne were to leave the game early for any reason, then that Hasty number is something that you guys can hop on over at FanDuel or at least one of these other books if they adjust to around that number.
Anybody with foot and ankle injuries, you don't want to throw them into the pile. Red zone, you see him pushing away. So that Hasty prop would be pretty nice. I just think there's so much on the passing side because Hasty's not like big power,
5'8", 205.
He's a bowling ball. He's not like a big Saquon Barkley. He's not like a Derrick Henry who you pair up because Etienne's not really a power guy. But I don't think there's any
2.3 yards per carry for Hasty against the Ravens, but 5 catches for 67 yards and a touchdown with a long of 28.
That's who he is. So thinking he's going to get the red zone carries it's better than Etienne at this stage. You just don't want to get him stepped on, get him crushed in those piles, cranking that foot over.
The other guy to keep an eye out for here also might be a juicy touchdown prop. They picked up Darrell Henderson from the Rams after they cut him, and he wasn't active to start, but now 2 games in, he could be on the active roster. So watch the inactives for the Jaguars. That could be your goal line back. Ton of experience in that situation. And FanDuel posting a plus 600 on an anytime touchdown on Darrell Henderson.
That's a very interesting one. I mean, he was playing well for the Rams. They just, I think gave him the chance to go and play somewhere because they wanted to see what Williams could do.
For sure. Other injury in this one, just an update. The rookie Jameson Williams for the Lions, the first-round wide receiver, coming back from an ACL injury. You're watching closely here if this is going to be the debut or not.
Yeah, this is one that I'm really intrigued about. Everybody probably remembers seeing him tear his ACL, just a nasty injury last year in the national championship game. The Indianapolis turf bit him. He's been coming back from it, so he's at the 10-month mark right now, a little under that. But he's been running very well. One of the things you saw, and I actually put this out on my Twitter feed today, was video of him running. Don't care at all. The fact that he's saying I'm, nearly 100% on speed, great. That's not what an ACL does.
Right.
I'm worried about can you cut, can you stop? The fact that you're really fast, that's nice. You were really fast before. There was no reason to think that wasn't going to be. I don't think this is going to be the week they bring him back. The week he does, holy cow. That's the week that I'm taking every Amon-Ra St. Brown prop going way over because you're going to have to cover him. Yeah, St. Brown and his brother, actually, have really emerged as solid number 1 wide receivers for their respective team. But Amon-Ra and Jared Goff just have something. You love to see it.
Cooper Kupp 2.0 for Goff.
It really is. So it's one of those situations where once you have a guy with just ridiculous speed like Williams, even if the thing I was thinking they were going to do this week was just send him out there as, hey, he's just going deep. He's not doing anything else. But you're going to have to, if nothing else, run wind sprints with him. But that's going to open up St. Brown. You're not going to be able to double and triple and box him the way they have. So as good as Williams is, he's always going to be a big play guy. He's going to be one of those guys that has, 4 catches for 20 yards or 5 catches for 120 yards. St. Brown's still the number 1, going to be the number 1, but that's going to be a really intriguing team offensively next season.
Do you think he's definitely coming back this year, Jameson Williams, with the Lions not in the playoff picture?
No, for nothing else than confidence. You want to get him out there the minute he's physically capable. You just want him to see it. So that way he can say, okay, I'm out of this rehab stage. I'm not doing that anymore. I got all the way back. I won my rehab. And then he can have a normal off season. So being out there, seeing the game speed, it's just to give him confidence. If they do nothing more than that, you're going to want to do that. So, yeah, I think it's 100% he is going to play. And he's going to play meaningful minutes in like week 16, 17, 18.
This game hovering around a pick 'em -1 for the Jags in some spots, -1 for the Lions in some spots. Again, should be fun. Total of 51.5 here. In terms of the outcome, I think you flip a coin and enjoy it. But my angle here is to go to the books where the Jags are the dog and tease them up in a 6.5 point teaser.
Whoa.
Price should be -130 on that. Anything more than 130 on a 6.5 teaser, and the book's ripping you off. So if I can get Jags plus 7.5 on a teaser here, that's my angle, because I could see them losing the game, but I don't think the Lions are beating anybody by double digits. So that's kind of
this one. This one's a shootout. So, if somebody wins by 10, I'd be stunned. I think this is going to be one of those. Wouldn't stun me to see it be another overtime game. It seems like we have a couple of those every week.
And I believe in Trevor Lawrence's development. If you want to hear all the reasons why, I laid it out for you in the Megapod. You can find that on our YouTube channel this weekend heading into week 13. We cannot do an injury podcast this week, Will, without talking about Jamar Chase and the Cincinnati Bengals, especially when they play a monster game against the Kansas City Chiefs this week. You were pretty concerned when this injury first happened because we didn't have a ton of specifics, because it's a hip injury that could lead to potentially season-ending issue. Where are you at right now with what you know, with whether or not he's in the clear, or if this is a situation where you're going to have to try and play through it in hopes of not worsening it?
No, he's relatively in the clear. He came out and gave a lot of specifics. So kudos to him. He had it. I couldn't see exactly who was over his shoulder when he was talking, the video clip I saw, but it looked like one of the athletic trainers. And if so, let the athletic trainer talk. But he did a fairly good explanation of what happened. And basically was he catapulted his hip. Think of, we all know what a knee hyperextension looks like, where the knee just goes further than it's supposed to. But he hyperextended and then catapulted back. So the head of his femur jabbed back into the back of his hip socket. And there was a small area, call it a fracture. Again, it's not a fracture like you think. This was much more like, again, it seems like every injury we call out Tua Tagovailoa. He had it where his hip basically broke through the back of that hip socket and it had to be reconstructed. This was just a crack in that cup of the hip. It's called
is the term like hairline fracture appropriate here?
No, not really. It's more of an impact fracture.
Okay.
It's, if you think about, it's something hitting a window and the window cracking and kind of spider webbing, that's more likely what you would have seen there. So that's what happened. The concern I have in the longer term is whether there's labrum damage, because obviously there has to be. The bone, the labrum goes in between the bone and the cup and the head there. So it had to have gotten bashed a little bit. Did it just get bruised? If it actually tore, they might have to go in there and shave it down or reattach it. If so, that's something that can be done in the offseason. He's running well. He's cutting well. We've seen video of him this week. Certainly his mouth is doing okay because the Chiefs and Bengals have been going back and forth. But the one thing I am not concerned about, he is going to be able to run in straight lines. So again, this goes back to Williams. Nothing else. He can be a really good decoy, a really good deep man. They've got Higgins, they've got Boyd, they've got tight ends. They won't have Joe Mixon, it doesn't look like. Which throws things off a little bit. He's still in the concussion protocol, would need a full practice, and it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So it's one of those situations where I think Chase is going to be able to be effective. I'm very curious to see the first time he makes up. The one I want to see is a button hook. The old button hook, run down 5 yards, spin, be able to make that quick, stable stop, and be able to body up to the corner or safety who's on you. That's the play where it's really going to test that hip. I don't think they have any concerns about the bone. If they have any long-term concerns about the labrum, well, that doesn't affect you these next couple of weeks. So I think Chase, they wouldn't have him back if he wasn't close to 100%, if there was any sort of worry, because they've been playing pretty well without him. But they're certainly better with him, and I think they will be a very good team, and that is going to be one heck of a game.
Yeah, and the Bengals have taken interest this week as a home dog. It opened at 3. That got gobbled up very quickly by the Sharps, and it's continued to move a little bit here further. Chiefs anywhere between -1.5 to -2.5, depending on where you look at this point, which is not something we see very often with the Kansas City Chiefs being less than a field goal favorite, even if it is on the road. So if that is not the game of the day, Will, then it is certainly the San Francisco 49ers hosting the Miami Dolphins. And we talk a lot about skill positions on this show because that's what most people are interested in here. But there is a significant issue in the trenches for the Miami Dolphins with both of their tackles. Their right tackle, Austin Jackson, is out. Their left tackle, Teron Armstead, is doubtful. The vast majority of players listed as doubtful do not suit up. And they're facing a ferocious front four for the 49ers that is getting even better with the return of Eric Armstead on that defensive line. Oh boy, Tua better get rid of the ball quick in this one.
Yeah, that's the thing. And you've also got to remember that, Tua's left-handed, so everything's a little bit backwards. How the 49ers will set up is going to be a question. Will they roll him out more? I'm curious about this game for so many reasons. First off, Armstead with pectoral injury, he's going to have a tough time. If he plays going up against Bosa, that is exactly the kind of thing. Pectoral, we think of it as the chest muscle, but it goes up into the shoulder. If anybody's a barbecue guy, you know how the brisket actually gets really thin up towards the top, the one end? That's that.
There you go.
So it's a situation where if he has to get his arms out and back, it is just not going to be good. And Bosa's so quick. That's his move, is to just basically burst past somebody and force him to get off balance trying to catch him. It's just such a bad matchup for him to begin with. It's a worse matchup for him with this injury. On the other side, which is effectively the blind side for him, with Jackson not going to play, they're down to effectively their third guy at the start of the season. So that's going to be tough. I'm really curious about this because Mike McDaniel obviously knows that defense. He's obviously been really good at setting up an offense that this team can run. How is he going to adjust that? How is he going to make those changes week to week, which is the thing we haven't yet seen from him as a head coach. We saw it last year as an offensive coordinator. Same sort of thing here. I am really intrigued about the strategy of this game. This is a game I'm not just going to watch. This is a game I'm going to be dialing up the all-22 to try to figure out exactly what adjustments they were making. I'm going to fully geek out on this game, and I think there's a lot of people like me that are going to be the same way.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, the Dolphins are basically running a version of the 49ers offense. They might have to run a carbon copy of the 49ers offense now with a lot of low ADOT run and catch situations so that the rush for the 49ers can't get home against Tua. So he might look even more like Jimmy Garoppolo in this game. It's a fascinating game, a potential Super Bowl matchup. Honestly, it could be.
The thing I'm looking for is more rollouts. And I think that very early on, they're going to try to figure out how to make Bosa not go up the field. I think something like a shovel pass, something like some sort of middle screen, is something that basically draws them back towards the middle and allows him to have that rollout if he needs it to spin out of it. Tagovailoa doesn't run a lot. For God's sakes, he's got 2 tight ropes. He's got a hip injury. He's got those 2 concussions. He's a walking example for me, but he's playing really well, throwing the ball well. Obviously, adding Tyreek Hill to that offense and Jalen Waddle, you got 2 speedsters out there. I think that this isn't going to look like the 49ers offense in some ways because you've got so much more of a mobile quarterback that gives McDaniel more options.
Final note here for the Ravens and Broncos game. Just had some news come across the desk. Jerry Jeudy has an ankle. He is questionable for that game against the Ravens. And Cortland Sutton has an illness. He is questionable as well.
Yeah.
Perhaps the reason why this has now moved out of teaser zone territory. The Ravens are a 9.5-point favorite in a game with a total of only 39.5. This is like Iowa Big Ten football territory here, what we're looking at. So,
why are you hating on Iowa? I think it's one of those things where obviously the offense for Denver has had problems all year long. Having two of their key wide receivers hurt or sick is problematic. But let's focus in on that. We're seeing a ton of illness. We're used to seeing the last couple of years with COVID situations, and they've taken it much more seriously. But we also didn't see a lot of flu. Now there's this RSV thing that's filling up emergency rooms, mostly with kids. But remember how young most of these NFL players are. They're subject to that too. And most of them have young kids or around them. So, NFL teams are set up in a way that it's basically a virus factory. They're all in, as nice as those places are.
Yeah, just to give you a quick example about that, the 2 seasons I worked for the Colts, they had a standing policy in the building that whether you were on the team or behind the scenes, if you were sick, you were not to enter the building because they didn't want the players getting sick.
Exactly. And on top of that, it's their kids, their wives. Kids are just germ factories. But we're going to see a lot over the next couple of weeks, and getting those players back, making sure your key players aren't out there. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some teams, especially in the playoffs, if we continue to see these kind of virus numbers. First off, go back to masks, and second off, if they go to more of a quarantine situation where they take teams to a hotel for not just the day before, but a couple days before to try to control things. And NFL medical staffs have been talking about this, mostly in context of if there's another COVID variant. But with the flu running wild right now, all of us need to take note of this and maybe mask up again.
Yeah, and especially if you're sick, right? At least if you're sick, so you don't spread it to somebody else. I mean, that's been kind of a social norm in Japan and Asian countries for decades now. If you're sick, you wear a mask so you don't spread it. But yeah, great thoughts there, great context, great background on what NFL teams are talking about. Again, his book is The Science of Football. Makes a great stocking stuffer, right? I hate to do the corny, shameless plug, but it's a great book, man.
It's a very good book. It's interesting if you want to know more about what's happening behind the scenes, whether it's the injuries that we talk about, whether it's the training, or how they come up with these, what does Mike McDaniel's offense, what's it based on? How does it come from it? That was some of the stuff that I was excited to learn about. So paperback so you can roll it up, stuff it in the stocking. And,
there you go.
You can get that at Amazon or a local bookstore.
I love it. As always, his column is on thelines.com right now. You can read through some more specifics on injuries like Aaron Rodgers and Justin Fields. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Let us know in the comments who you are betting on this week. What injuries have you most concerned? You can follow him on Twitter at Injury Expert. I am at Steven Andress and the number 1. Thank you so much for watching. Best of luck with all your bets in week number 13.